So I want you to think about the moment that you decided that you wanted to work in cybersecurity. Maybe you were watching a Mr. Robot episode. Maybe somebody told you that cybersecurity is a very lucrative career. Maybe just the thought of being able to break things or hack into things is really intriguing to you. And today, I'm not only going to tell you about the best starting point for cybersecurity, I'm actually going to walk you through that, because I know if this is an interest of yours, you're out here on YouTube trying to figure out where you go, or maybe you've already done a Google search and you've looked at all these acronyms and looked at all these different certifications and learning platforms, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. Now, I'm not telling you that what I'm about to say is the gold standard by any means. I think there's a lot of great opinions out there, but this can be a great starting point for you, especially if you're looking to get into doing all the hacky hack fun things. So where do we actually start? And that answer begins with CTFs, capture the flags. Maybe you've heard of this before, maybe it's brand new to you, but think about capture the flag like you would when you were a kid, when you had a team of players and you had to go and capture a flag or some intimate object from another team, where you guys had to work together to, bypass their defenses and, get around them and capture and secure that flag. And that was your victory. Well, capture the flag competitions or learning platforms, if you will, in cybersecurity operate in much the same way. You are given some type of objective that you need to follow in order to infiltrate somebody's network, somebody's computer systems. And you ultimately have to find a flag. And a flag often looks like this, where it's just like hard-coded text in a Word document, posted on the screen somewhere as you're accessing different files and systems like that. The flags are just embedded somewhere where you have to find them. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, if you will. So this little string here that we showed on the screen, that's the flag. That's all you have to look for. Once you submit that flag, you get points. You get to move on to the next part of the competition, or maybe that's it, and you complete the competition. Capture the flag competitions are mostly about putting together all these little bits and pieces of knowledge and trying to solve a challenge. So it does utilize a lot of technical skills, but don't be scared of that. Don't be afraid. There's literally nothing to be scared of, because not every CTF is very difficult. In fact, there are beginner CTFs that we are going to introduce you to today and actually walk you through so that we can get rid of that fear and show you, hey, it's a lot easier than it sounds and it's not as scary. And you can just start at the fundamental level, and that's okay, because it's a great learning experience. And that's really what a CTF is all about. Now, CTF doesn't necessarily represent exactly what you are going to see in the real world. However, when you compete in a capture the flag competition or just going through a CTF learning experience, you're gathering knowledge. You're putting together all of these different bits and pieces of knowledge that you've learned throughout the years or throughout the past couple of months. And you're piecing that together to solve a challenge. You're sometimes using, basic Linux skills, Python skills, and other programming skills in order to obtain the flag that is part of whatever challenge you're trying to solve. Now, there are plenty of great walkthroughs out there that exist on the internet. YouTube is a great resource for all of the walkthroughs, but a couple other resources out there that are going to be phenomenal for you that we're just going to touch on briefly, because the big one we're going to cover in the end when we do the walkthrough. But Try Hack Me is one of the best fundamental starting points for capture the flag competitions and learning. And Hack the Box is another great platform. That one's a little bit more advanced, so don't jump into that one right away. Even Try Hack Me might not be something that you're ready for immediately. Now, I mentioned before that there are many different types of challenges that you can get into. One of the ones that we're going to cover today is just going to be Linux, but there are other types of CTFs out there as well, from web exploitation, which is going to be a little bit more about finding vulnerabilities in websites and things like that. And that's going to be more of a beginner one for a lot of people out there. And there's things like cryptography, where you're breaking or decoding encrypted messages. That one's going to be a little bit more advanced, and that's really like, you're either going to understand that or you're not. And it's okay if you don't be worried. If you don't, I don't. By any means, that's way over my head, and that's okay. And there's forensics, where you're going to be digging through files and packet captures and images to find, hidden data and things like that. That's definitely a good one, probably a great a next starting point after web exploitation and things like that. But those are kind of like, you could go in between those. They're not necessarily the best starting point, just maybe one might be a little bit easier than the other. But by all means, start with whatever you want, because there's a lot of great learning material out there to help you along either way, whichever way you want to go. And then of course, there's things like binary exploitation, which is a little bit more advanced. Definitely wouldn't start there by any means. And there's other miscellaneous, CTFs out there that might be like OSINT related, or other puzzles and steganography and other things like that. But you're going to have all levels from beginner to like super advanced. I know a lot of the different conferences that I go to, like Wild West Hackin' Fest, DEF CON, they always have some type of CTF competition that's associated with it, where it's like this big to do and you have multiple teams who are competing to get all of the flags and get as many points as you possibly can. And it's a big deal, especially in the conference world, and especially honestly, like within the CTF world in general. A lot of people love to compete and have fun with these things, but you don't always have to look at it as a competition. It's a learning experience. It's all about learning new things and having fun while you're doing it. And when you go to a conference and you get to compete in the CTF, you're often doing that with a team and you get to collaborate. And that's a lot of fun too. But it's not always that way. You don't always have to compete with a team. It's not always a big to-do. There are also plenty of ways that you can self-pace and follow along on your own speed. And you don't have to worry about competing with anybody other than yourself. And that's okay. There's great platforms like Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, and Meta CTF that offer all types of challenges, again, from beginner to advanced. And some of them are really easy to do. And some of them, they are very, very hard to do. But I think most of them all have walkthroughs. So if you do get caught up in something, you can follow along with them and you'll learn how to do it on your own. And that's how you get better. You're not always going to figure this stuff out on your own. Sometimes you have to follow along with somebody like you're going to do today, because that's what we're going to do right now. Instead of just talking about it and saying, hey, here's what a CTF is, here's the different types of things that you can do, let's just jump into it. Let's dive right into a CTF. And we're going to do that with Overthewire. So Overthewire is a great starting platform, and we're going to actually go into the Bandit war games. So make sure you guys click the link in the description. Otherwise, it's overthewire.org/bandit/wargames/bandit/bandit0.html. That's our starting point. This is the basic, fundamental, entry-level CTF, Bandit level 0. Now, before we jump into this, it's probably a good idea that you have some familiarity with the command line, whether that's in, the Linux terminal or on a Windows computer or a Mac. So having some command line experience is going to be very helpful for you. Otherwise, they do have some helpful reading material where you can try to piece some of these things together, but you can also just go out and do a Google search if you get stuck at any point throughout this. And even from the get-go, you might not know how to use SSH. And that's what this first part of this challenge is doing, is just connecting you to the server so that we can start this CTF. So the first challenge, literally, we're going to open up a command line and we are going to connect to this server via SSH. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and kick over to my command line. And what we want to do is look at the information that's provided here on the Overthewire website. So what it wants us to do via SSH is connect to bandit.labs.overthewire.org on port 2220 with the username bandit0, and the password is bandit0. So if you are not familiar with SSH, you can do a quick Google search on what you would actually need to type in. You can even use ChatGPT if you wanted to, and you could even fill in all this information and it'll say, hey, here's exactly what you type into the command line. But I know from doing this already, from having a little bit of knowledge within the command line, having a little bit of knowledge, connecting an SSH before, I can type in, and there's many ways to do this, by the way, but we could type in SSH and we can do -P, which is going to say, signify the port that we want to use. And we're going to say 2220. And then we're going to do a space, do bandit0 at, and then bandit.labs.overthewire. I could type .org. And then what we could do is hit enter. And what this is going to do is reach out to the Bandit server here, or, Overthewire servers for this specific Bandit game that we're going to play. So we did this, it's connected to that server, but it's asking us for the password. Well, they provided us with that password. So we're going to type this in, bandit0. And if you've never done this in the command line before, it doesn't actually show that you're typing into the terminal. So you're not going to see anything being typed in. Just hope and pray that you type in that password right and then hit enter. And if you did that correct, it's going to say, hey, you connected. You did it. You did the thing. Congratulations. That's the first part of the challenge. You literally just completed part of a CTF. You got points. Like, you did this. That's fantastic. This is just the starting point. So as we could see, if we go back over to Over the Wire, level 0, we completed that, but now we have, oh goodness sakes, 34 levels to complete. So we're not going to do all of those, but let's go ahead and jump over to let's do level 1, because we just did level 0. So level goal, the password for the next level is stored in a file called readme located in the home directory. Use this password to log into bandit1 using SSH. Whenever you find a password for level, use SSH on port 2220 to log into that level and continue the game. So for this one, you need to know basic Linux commands. So if you aren't familiar with Linux, this is a great way to really start learning. Otherwise, there's great resources like Professor Messer out there who could teach you Linux. There's Coding with Mosh. He's a fantastic resource. I think he does Linux. I know he does Python for sure. And once you get to Python, that's definitely my best recommendation. But there are plenty of great resources out there to learn Linux. So let's go ahead and try to go to the next part of this challenge. So I'm going to go back to my command line, and what we need to do is read the README. And we could do this from the command line, right? And there's many ways that we can kind of figure this out. But what we want to do first is figure out, where are we? Are we in the right folder, or, what's in this folder that we're in right now? So when you look at like a Windows computer, right, and we're all familiar with Windows, or you look at Macs, we all are familiar with that graphical user interface, right? The graphical user interface where you click on things and they open up and they do things, right? Well, the command line, that's like telling the computer to do all of those commands in the background, and it can open up files, it can look at folders and directories, and it can read text documents and things all from the command line, all without a graphical user interface. So that's kind of what we're going to do right now. And in Linux, in the command line here, in the terminal, if we type in ls and hit enter, that's basically like us opening up a directory and looking at all of the files that are in that directory. Well, as soon as we log into a Linux machine via the terminal, we are plopped right into a directory. And the directory that we are plopped right into, that we directly get logged into, is the home directory for the Bandit account. So if you're thinking about like a Windows computer, you have like your Windows username and your Windows account, you log into your Windows computer and you have a folder under your users for that specific account, right? Linux, it's the same way. And that's what we're doing right now. So we're at our home directory for the Bandit account. And we can see if we do this ls, we look inside of that directory, there's README. README is a text file. It doesn't specifically show you that it's a text file, but oftentimes when it just shows the text right there, oftentimes it's just some type of text file that you can open up within Linux. So what we can do is type in CAT space README, and Cat is actually going to go ahead and read this text file for us and tell us what's in it. So if we go ahead and click enter, Cat README, it says, congratulations on your first step into the Bandit game. Please make sure you have read the rules at, we're at the, the website that we're at. And if you're following a course, workshop, walkthrough, other directories, blah, 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 the password you were looking for is that right here. We want to save this. All right. So we just completed level 0 and level 1 of the Bandit challenge on Over the Wire. The next step for you is going through the rest of the challenges on the site there. And if you get caught up, don't worry, you can Google everything and you can get the results that you need if you get stuck. But this is a great way just to get started in learning CTFs, learning cybersecurity. It's going to get your hands on the keyboard where you're learning the commands, where you're solving challenges, and it's fun to do. Now you can check out Meta CTF, where they do monthly competitions, and they have everything from beginner to expert level, and they also give away tons of free prizing for people who participate. So not only can you get prizing for winning, but just participating. So that's really, really cool and awesome of Meta CTF. And it's a great platform if you want to learn more about capture the flags and, of course, getting into cybersecurity and things like that. All right, now I know that we completed 2 of the levels on Over the Wire. Probably doesn't quite feel like hacking yet, right? It's not really, but it is solving a capture the flag challenge. And you did 2 of those. And that's all that it takes. This is a great starting point. It's a great way to just get your feet wet and understand what is kind of out there in the world of cybersecurity. Again, it's not as realistic as the real world, but piecing together all of this information and having fun with it is a great way to learn. So I hope you found this video useful. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, hit me up in the comments below. I'd love to hear from y'all. Otherwise, I really want to do more CTF type of videos. So if there's a specific challenge that you would like to see me do that's more entry level and basic, because that's my level, that's where I'm at right now, let me know. But I will definitely be moving towards something Active Directory related, because that's what I love. That's what I'm passionate about. So anyway, thank you all for watching. As always, take it easy.